the Titans had two more players test positive for COVID, including star cornerback Stephon Gilmore. We saw that their game this week is in jeopardy again after the NFL had two games played on Monday night. This is getting bad, guys. What do we think about the NFL's ability to react to COVID positives?
So the NFL and the way that they've handled this is terrible. Like, let's just say it. Let's just be honest about how this has been handled. The NFL was incapable of controlling the COVID outbreak that was going to happen. You and I, Johnny, we said it, 6, 7 months ago. Like when we first started this podcast, the NFL and their lack of diligence, their lack of action on the COVID-19 and the COVID outbreak was going to come back to bite them in the butt, because it's not good enough to just say we're not going to play the preseason. It's not good enough to say, oh, we're going to have virtual training camps. It's not good enough to say we're going to have, social distancing in the facility, but then on the practice field where it's going to be a free for all where no one has to wear a mask and no one has to do anything. It's not good enough. All right. The reality is half of the Tennessee Titans players, there are 52 active roster players. 22 players that we know of have tested positive for COVID-19 in the past 2 weeks. That means the Tennessee Titans are, for all intents and purposes, I'm sorry, Andrew, they're done. They're done at least for the next week or two. They're out of action. They're out of commission because you can't have that spread. They don't have a full roster to play with. They already had to switch their bye week and switch their week playing the Steelers this week. We don't even know what they're going to do next week. They actually might have to forfeit the game. There's been talk between the NFL circles of the Bills actually winning that game via forfeit. So it's not good for the Titans. It's also not good for the Patriots, because the Patriots already had their game moved to Monday last week, and now they're already on a short week. And now even their future is in question because Stephon Gilmore tests positive. We don't know, because it takes a few days for those positive tests to come back because you're asymptomatic and there's not enough of the disease in you until you test positive. So we don't know. And Stephon Gilmore played the Chiefs. So like I said, again, Johnny, exactly what you and I said. It's if you don't contain this, if you don't contain this virus, it's going to spread to every team. And right now we're seeing it. The Steelers were in question last week. The Chiefs are in question this week. The Patriots are in question this week. The Titans. And now the Raiders. We had a defensive tackle, I believe, for the Raiders who tested positive. So now we don't even know what's happening in Oakland. Las Vegas. Sorry, Oakland fans.
Get it right.
But we don't know what's happening there. And it's just, there's so many things the NFL could have done to avoid. There's still things they can do to avoid it. They said you can't do a bubble, right? And that's fine. I understand you can't put 52 people or per team into one bubble. That's way too much. But there is a way, I think, for the teams to manage their players and their staff in their own cities, and then they can go out and travel, travel safely. I think that's possible. I don't think it's possible to put everyone in a bubble. Maybe into the playoffs you could do that. Maybe that's something you can do. And I believe COVID's going to be a problem going into the playoffs. So they need to figure something out, because right now it's looking like we're leading to a stoppage of play. And a stoppage of play means the owners are not going to make money. A stoppage of play means the fans are not going to watch the only sport that really matters at this point. I don't think the ratings for the NBA Finals are actually pretty low if you looked at them. Ratings for baseball are in the toilet. Think about what that means. The ratings for the NHL were, basically in the toilet as well compared to where they were beforehand last year. So, and the NFL is the only sport that's really had that consistent, level of rating success during the COVID season. So I think it's important for the NFL to deal with this now. And, as far as the Titans go, Andrew, I'm sorry. I think your team might have to, forfeit this game because
Dude, I get people.
There's just no, the way the NFL is scheduled is also bad, because they're playing a full 16 game season within 17 weeks when they could have just played a 16 game season in the span of 20 weeks. You could have had a bunch of bye weeks at the end. If you need to make up games, you could have done it. You could have done 14 games into 17 weeks. You could have done so much more than they did. And like I said months ago, the NFL has been quiet, and their inaction has led to the infection of several players. And it's an indictment on them. It's an indictment on their system that they're running and the job that they're doing. They're not protecting their players. It needs to stop.
They got to get Jerry Jones on this.
I
We need
don't, I
Jerry
don't even think
Jones.
Jerry Jones believes in COVID. Are you kidding me? Like, come on.
No, he does not. There's no way he does. So I kind of see this like a slow. It's like the reactor is starting to blow up,
Mm-hmm.
but we're at the failure portion, right? So the
Yep.
alarms are going off, and there's still time to fix it. And if it breaks down, it's going to be a slow burn before a catastrophe,
Yeah.
right? And I think what you're going to see is that the NFL is going to be the least reactive of all the leagues, right? Baseball
Mm-hmm.
moved, like we can criticize baseball all we want. They moved quickly and they figured out a system that worked, that not only was just let's fix the Cardinals, let's fix the Marlins,
Mm-hmm.
right? It was no, we do the double headers so we can, knowing that this is going to keep popping up, we found a way to get around this consistently. So while it might not be great, yeah, maybe we don't want to have 7 inning double headers,
Mm-hmm.
but we can get around it. So the Mets, the Phillies had some issues, the Astros had some issues, the Dodgers had some issues, the Brewers had some issues. A lot of teams had issues, but baseball figured out a way around it. The NBA, the NHL, because it's the postseason, they were able to bubble up in Canada, where the virus is a little safer, and in Orlando, where you can just be in the bubble, so you're not really at risk. And I think that the NFL, as we've talked about on this podcast many times, the NFL has just been negligent
Yep.
in its desire to handle it. It's kind of had that Republican mindset of, if we just ignore it, it'll go away. And what can you do
You know what
if a guy gets COVID on Tuesday? The game's canceled.
the
You can't do
funny the
anything.
funny thing about that is Dana White, who's the president of the UFC, who's he's a renowned Republican. Everyone knows that. Even he said the only thing that he could do to keep UFC alive and to have those fights, to have those events that have been played, that have been done since COVID started, you have to be willing to spend the money. Even he said that you have to be willing to spend the money. And I think the NFL and their lack of desire to want to spend the money, it's hurting them. And like it's not like they can't. It's not like they can't spend the money. Okay, there's so many ways to make money, especially if you're the NFL and you have those many eyeballs that aren't going away, mind you, like in baseball or even basketball right now. All right, when you have those many eyeballs on you, there's ways to make money. You can, like I said, put advertisements on the field. You can put you can sell even virtual slots to fans who want to have a computer screen. I think that's what WWE is doing now, and they're actually finding a way to make it work. So there's different ways you can do it. It's just I think they just don't want to change. They have their business model that they've ran on for over 60, 70 years, and they just don't feel like the need to change. And these are unprecedented times. You have to be willing to adapt with the times, and the NFL is showing again and again that they can't and they won't. They